I put out a Twitter poll on Friday asking what people wanted me to talk about if I wanted to start talking about the Canadiens on my channel a little more frequently. And this was not one of the options, but I guess sometimes life makes these decisions for you. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and Max Pacioretty is gone. Question. What do you do when you don't want your fan base to get no sleep? Answer, trade your captain at 1 a.m. The Montreal Canadiens trade left winger and team captain Max Pacioretty, retaining 10% on his deal, retaining about $450,000, to the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for forward Tomas Tatar, the Knights retaining 9.4%, about $500,000 on Tatar's deal for the next 3 seasons. So the money, kind of interesting there for Vegas, holding a little more money over a little longer term to get the deal done. They also trade Nick Suzuki as well as a 2019 second round pick. So obviously the thing I really want to talk about here is what did Montreal get in return for Pacioretty, but I'm going to start doing my due diligence. What exactly did Vegas acquire? In 626 career NHL games, Max Pacioretty has 226 goals, 222 helpers, 448 points. So about, what was that? About 2/3, a little better than 2/3 of a point per game. He's also got 339 penalty minutes. He's not afraid to get in there and stick up for himself. 19 points in 38 playoff games. So it is a player that has playoff experience, which the Vegas Golden Knights obviously really covet, because clearly by making this trade, Vegas is in win now mode. They're acquiring a player that had a leadership role with a cornerstone franchise in the NHL, or at least has been in the history of the NHL. Certainly not right now, but he has a leadership role. He's been a team captain before, obviously been in a leadership role. That is important to an acquiring team. A player that has led his team in scoring 5 years of his NHL career and also has 5 seasons of 30 or more goals. Now, one thing that I will say is this trade was contingent on Max Pacioretty agreeing to a long-term contract extension with the Vegas Golden Knights. That was reported as per Complete Hockey News on Facebook, which everyone needs to follow. So it was contingent, apparently, on a long-term extension. I wouldn't be surprised to see that extension announced today or tomorrow. Would not be surprised whatsoever if the number begins with a 6. Maybe it begins with a 7. Who knows? Could be a little bit shorter because it is going to be, or a little bit less rather, because it is going to be a long-term deal. Now, the fun stuff. What did Montreal get back? In 427 games of NHL experience, Tomas Tatar has 119 goals, 109 assists, 228 points, so he's a little better than a half point a game. Obviously not quite at Pacioretty's point scoring level. Got 146 penalty minutes. He'll get a little scrappy if he needs to. 7 points in 17 games of playoff experience, so we are still bringing in a player that has playoff experience as recently as last season, of course, with the Vegas Golden Knights. Tatar has a ton of international experience playing for Slovakia. He has 4 seasons of 20 goals, including last season split between Detroit and Vegas. And 2 of those seasons, he went over 25. So this is a player that can score at the NHL level, and that's obviously very important to Montreal. What might be equally important, it's a player that we have some contract control over, because obviously we got 3 seasons of this player under contract. There's possibilities, obviously, to turn around and, trade him somewhere else in a season or 2, whatever. There's options there with a player that we have a little more contract control over. Nick Suzuki is a 5'11", 183-pound prospect center playing in the OHL. 271 career games in the OHL, 226 points. So he's just a little bit under a point a game, but he's coming off a 100-point season in the OHL for, I believe, Owen Sound. So he's coming off of clearly his best season at that level. He got a very small taste of the AHL, 1 playoff game with the Chicago Wolves in the AHL last season. This is a prospect that should play in the AHL next year. I can't imagine him going back to Owen Sound because I think he might be one of their overagers, but I could be wrong in saying that. So maybe he does go back. But even if he does go back, this is a project player. It's an exciting prospect. It's a prospect that has, again, been very successful at the current level that he's at. I'll be really interested to see how that translates to the AHL game. This is a project. It's a couple years project, but I'm excited about a player like Nick Suzuki. And the second round pick is, what it is. It's a second round pick. It's probably a top 60. Well, it would almost have to be a top 60 prospect in the draft for this coming season. Of course, unless, Vegas wins the cup. But look, top 60 prospect, maybe top 50 if we're lucky, depending how the draft shakes out. I think this is the long and short of it. I don't think Pacioretty was re-signing. So it was one of two options. You trade him now, or you wait until the trade deadline. So maybe at the trade deadline, his value would have gone up. But if he has another season like he had last season and plays down, or God forbid gets hurt, his value could wind up being nothing. So I think between the two options, this might have been the smarter way to go. If you've already got it in your mind that this player's not going to re-sign, Alan Walsh is an asshole, we don't want to have to deal with this, we're not going to be re-signing this player, you might as well trade him now, rip the Band-Aid off, what are you waiting for? So that's the decision that they made. They traded the captain after they traded PK. And it's certainly not the worst deal that Bergevin has made. I think this is actually, as far as the return goes, a pretty decent return for a player that you're only going to have for one more year and then was going to walk in free agency. So they got something. Did they get as much as they maybe could have, should have? Look, Nick Suzuki was a former first-round pick. Like a recent first-round pick. So you're talking about a very recent first-round prospect, a second-round pick, and a scoring forward that we have some contract control over. There could have been a worse return for Pacioretty. Again, especially if they would have tried to say, okay, we're going to wait till the trade deadline, and then he goes out and lays an absolute egg throughout the season. His value winds up being in the gutter. So you got to make a deal, and the deal that they made, I'm actually pretty comfortable with. Does it suck to trade the captain? Sure it does, but at least we got something for him. It's not like we're retaining salary for 7 or 8 years, like we're retaining salary for one season when we have a metric ton of cap space that we can't really spend on anybody unless we trade for somebody. So look, we traded for Tomas Tatar. We got him a little bit cheaper than at his contract rate. This could have been a whole lot worse than what it is. So that's the deal. Pacioretty to Vegas. We get back Tatar, Suzuki, second round pick in the upcoming draft. What do you think about the deal? Did Montreal get enough for Pacioretty? Did they not get enough for Pacioretty? What do you think Pacioretty's contract number is going to look like when it finally comes up? Like I say, I wouldn't be surprised if that got announced later today, but should certainly get announced this week that he signed the extension. What do you think about all this? Let me know in the comments section below. And I guess this is a great way to announce that I'm going to be talking about Montreal a little bit on the channel this season. So let me know what you think about all that. Like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. And I guess we'll see you next time.